Kuber sir, we are live, sir.
Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very good afternoon to you on this wonderful day of 28th of October 2020, and just the day after the Infantry Day. And for those of you who do not know about the Infantry Day, it was on that day that first Sikh was launched all the way from Gurgaon into Srinagar to throw away the rogue Pakistanis who had come and camped into India with a very notorious intention. And that's the day we celebrate every year as Infantry Day. This battalion was led by a Colonel Diwan Rai, who was posthumous Mahavir Chakra for this particular operation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are very happy today to welcome you to this event by ASSOCHAM, along with the Knowledge Partners EY, to the session on May. DAP 2020 will be the focus while we discuss on this particular theme this afternoon. So, ASSOCHAM is the knowledge architect of the corporate India. ASSOCHAM initiated its endeavor in value creation for the Indian industry way back in 1920, having in its fold more than 400 chambers and trade organizations and serving more than 4.5 lakh members from all over India. It has witnessed upswings as well as upheavals in the Indian economy and contributed significantly by playing a catalytic role in shaping the trade, commerce, and industrial environment of the country. Today, ASSOCHAM has emerged as the fountainhead of knowledge for Indian industry, which is all set to redefine the dynamics of growth and development in the technology-driven cyber age of knowledge-based economy. ASSOCHAM is seen as a forceful, proactive, forward-looking institution equipping itself to meet the aspirations of the corporate India new world of business. It's working towards creating a conducive environment of India business to compete globally. It derives its strength from its promoter chambers and the regional chambers spread all over the country. The vision of ASSOCHAM is to empower Indian enterprise by inculcating knowledge that will be the catalyst of growth in the barrierless technology-driven global market and help them upscale, align, and emerge as formidable players in respective business segments. Well, ladies and gentlemen, its strength of more than 4.5 lakhs, heterogeneous membership, it combines entrepreneurial spirit, business acumen of owners with management skills and expertise of professionals to set itself apart as a chamber of commerce. The Apex Chambers is more than 100 national councils covering entire gamut of economic activities in India, especially acknowledged as a significant voice of Indian industry in the field of aerospace and defense, auto and ancillaries, arbitration and legal affairs, corporate social responsibility, environment and safety, HR and labor affairs, corporate governance, information technology, luxury, lifestyle, biotechnology, telecom, banking, finance, company law, corporate finance, economic and international affairs, tourism, MSMEs, textiles, civil aviation, infrastructure, energy, power, education, legal reforms, etc. So we are here today to discuss DAP 2020, making India a global manufacturing hub. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Ernst & Young is among the top consultants of the world, and EY India has a very dedicated defense, aerospace and defense team with experts and proud to say that we have among the top educated aerospace and defense experts. We've got a double M.Tech in aerospace engineering. We've got experts in unmanned systems, strategic electronics, and commerce. Besides our extensive tax division, we also have a performance improvement, transaction advisory, and so many others. We are very proud of our legal team, as also our forensics teams that we have. So, without much ado, as knowledge partners to this particular seminar, we are very proud and very happy to say that the government has come out with a very forward-looking and a dynamic policy, which is the Defense Acquisition Policy Procedure 2020. And this procedure, besides other things, has given us very definitive impetus to the Indian industry. It has in many cases, it has added certain avenues for the Indian industry, especially things like Make 3, which is where they have drawn inspiration from the indigenization and have added it here. The strategic partnership model has been left untouched from the DPP 2016. The Make has become objective and time bound. And as I told you, apart from Make 1 and Make 2, Make 3 has been introduced. The timelines have been introduced. Flexibility has been given to the long process versus the non-negotiable needs of the armed forces. And as a part of self-reliance, ease of doing business, simplification, delegation of powers, reduced timelines, process to make it industry friendly are some of the great effects of this particular DAP. In ethos and spirit, it only talks about Atmanirbhar Bharat. It talks about investments in R&D. It talks about R&D culture. It talks about IP and IP rights. It actually enables and augments production in the country. FDI policy has been revised to upwards to make it 74%, only to act as a catalyst towards this overall gain of making India a global manufacturing. Science has been enabled by design and development, make, and strategic partnerships models. New categories like leasing and others have been introduced. We are going to talk a lot about it. I'm not going to steal away the thunder here. And as usual, there is a priority in the acquisition process. With this, I have great pleasure in inviting Commodore Mukesh Bhargava to give the opening address for the session. A graduate in electrical engineering from the country's premier institute, IIT Roorkee. In 1976, a technical officer in the Indian Navy. He has held various leadership positions in the Indian Navy, and I knew Commodore Mukesh Bhargava as my very dear senior colleague, and I've interacted with him in various professional forums. And his passion to take the Navy onto the next future years Navy, and to take it into a technological Navy, has been something of a passion while he was in the Navy. And outside of it, he's been only working with a company like Larsen and Toubro, which never delivers a system on time. You know why? Because it always delivers it before time. And that is what he stands for. That is what L&T stands for. I have great privilege in inviting Commodore Mukesh Bhargava. Sir, all yours.
Thank you, Colonel Kuber, for such flattering words. I hope I deserve some of them. A very good afternoon to you, and welcome to this DAP 2020 session, Making India a Global Manufacturing Hub, the technical session. I like to welcome our moderator, Colonel Kuber, Indian Army veteran, Director, Aerospace and Defense, Ernst & Young. Shri Ashok Vadhavan, Head Land Systems, Defense and Aerospace, Adani Enterprise. Shri Bill Blair, my good friend, Vice President and Chief Executive, Lockheed Martin India Private Limited. Major General P.K. Saini, Technical Manager, Land System, Ministry of Defense, Government of India. Dr. Mayank Dwivedi, Director, DIITM, DRDO Headquarters, Ministry of Defense. And my good colleague, Dr. Subbarao Garu, Chairman and Managing Director, Anand Technologies Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, today is we are discussing DAP 2020, and it's a big shift from the nomenclature itself and a watershed event. The DPP has been named as DAP, and on the 28th of September, this was made public, was announced, and the official document has become applicable from 1st of October. Why we call this as a watershed event is because the government has, for the first time in this independent Indian history, changed the procurement to an acquisition process. What is the change? And I think this is a very important thing for us to understand. They've introduced a concept which will ensure that we don't just buy equipment like you buy goods from the market, but also have an acquisition process. Like things have been introduced, like the through life used concept of procurement of aero engine, FAB, the concept of introducing artificial intelligence into defense procurement, indigenous software, and basically a capability build-up, including special materials which are required for the defense. And this is a major change. And I think in the process of making the DAP 2020, the acquisition team has done, I think, a sterling job, a pioneering job, and all credit should go to them for having a very patient and open attitude to interact with the industry, taking all the inputs of the industry, looking at it judiciously, and a very balanced and a fair approach has been followed. I remember I've been, as Colonel Kuber mentioned, I've been handling this sector for the last now 45 years, 31 years in the uniform, and this is the 15th year in the corporate. And the dictum which was normally followed was that the MOD people would stay in their silo and do not interact with the industry was a dictum. And I think this has been broken with this DAP 2020, where we had a very open and clear discussions to understand the MOD, to understand the industry issues. And right from DPP 2016, the issues that we have been highlighting have been captured, what is called in the corporate parlance as the BPR, business process restructuring, and 4 tranches of the BPR were discussed with MOD, and it led to nearly 47 to 50 changes in DPP 2016, which have been captured in DAP 2020. And this is something which is, I would say, the positive attitude, because the MOD this time was not prisoner to the written word, and changes which have come, some of which my good friend Colonel Kuber has already mentioned, but there is an introduction of 2 major categories. One is the leasing category, which would not block up the big capital which is required for acquisition if there is only a limited requirement or a requirement is not for the war fighting. The other category is, of course, buy global, manufacturing facilities in collaboration with the Indian companies. There's a higher indigenous content. There is speeding up and simplification of the trial process. Focus has been given on system integration capability and the operationalization of the SP model with the submarine strategic partners already announced. And I think the helicopter should happen soon. There are a number of industry-friendly financial decisions which have been taken, like the PVC for the large contract has been agreed. Most important part that I see from the industry's perspective is the announcement and inclusion of the negative list of 101 items for banned for imports. There's been focus on
Commodore
indigenization of
Mukesh
the spares
Bhargava,
with the
if I can
introduction of
just
the
Commodore Mukesh Barga, if I can just intercept you here because I wanted you to hold on to certain things, and I want to get back to you very soon on this particular thing. Because I just have an update that the Honorable Raksha Rajya Mantri will be joining us at 4 o'clock for the plenary session. And so I want to call up, in the meantime, the other speakers and then get back to you again very soon. Will that be all right, sir?
Perfectly fine, Colonel Kuber. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I want to call up the head of the land systems of the Adani Group for defense and aerospace, Ashok Wadhawan. He's got 25 years of experience in domestic and international experience in manufacturing, financial services, covering customer and commercial verticals. A versatile leader, having extensive experience in starting business from inception, building strategy, developing and nurturing client relationships. I think he is rightly positioned for the Adani Group because that's what is needed at this point in time for such a large group who's made a foray into defense. And they have done very well to do that. And is part of the CIFICI Defense Councils, and he is also part of different committees on policy. So Ashok Wadhawan, you've got about 3 to 4 minutes, please, to take on your take on the DAP.
Thank you, Colonel Kuber, and thank you, Commodore Mukesh Bhargav, and thank you and welcome all the participants and the panelists who are going to be speaking after me. I won't take each person's name right now. Let me just start by saying that, I totally agree that DAP has been a big change. Acquisition process which has been brought in. I think what makes it even more unique is that there's a budget which has been kept in, which is say 52,000 crores for indigenization industry. So, from private sector point of view, I would say there should be a large focus for the private sector to be able to pull into this budget and be able to manufacture and deliver. So quite a few of us, like Adani, we have set up facilities which are unique. Which have been set up not because there is an order, but because we wanted to bring in capability in the country, be part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and that is the focus which we would want the government to look into. But I think the focus on bringing a negative list is just towards there, because once you introduce a negative list, it just pushes the government to then focus on the private sector. I think the most important changes which have been brought in, which is the timelines, because most of us, which we have been talking out, and our biggest complaints have been that the programs start, but eventually they don't end up. Bringing in timelines, I think, focuses on and operationalization of SP model, because that's the key. We have to have few big players taking into the SP role, getting those projects so that it just flows down to MSMEs and others. I think those are the big changes which we are looking forward to, and we hope that with these changes brought into DAP, we get things moving. It could be to any of our big, large organizations, and once it comes in, it will benefit all of us. So I think the government has brought in a big change, and with our focus coming in, I think this there should be few of these large programs getting closed, which would benefit all of us. So I would leave this right now with our other panelists, that we have that conversation and then answer more questions.
Thank you so much, Ashok. You did bring about the participation of the private industry and the timelines. I want to, again, I'm sorry to fall back because he is an icon in the industry. So I want to fall back on Commodore Mukesh Bhargav. So on this very point of the private industry to be given the pride of place, which they have actually lost over the years, can you give 1 or 2 sentences as to what the government should do before I go on to William Blair?
Thank you, Colonel Kuber. I think what the industry is looking forward to, the policies are all very great, and I think they are positive in intent. We need to see that the government does walk the talk. We have been hearing about the capability build-up and the system integration capability. Today morning, while we were interacting with MOD, we heard about the R&D should be done by the industry. All that is fine, but where is the orders? If you have to bring system integration capability, the DAP and the DPPs before that have always been having a make one category. In the last 16 years, I have not seen a single make one category program, though three of them have been announced. And my company has been shortlisted for one of them already, and the other two we were well placed, but they have not been taken to the operationalization level. Even the
Thank you,
technical
sir.
communication
Thank you.
system.
Thank you
So
for that.
what we need is that make one, make two should be happening. Buy and make Indian, more programs should be announced. And the government should do the walk the talk. Implementation of this DAP 2020 would be the key, Colonel Kuber.
That's what I'm going to ask General Saini when I come to him. But here is the take. So we have had two Indian industry giants talking to you between Adani's and the L&Ts, and now is a global giant. And I have great pleasure in welcoming William Blair. Bill Blair is a very old friend, and I've known him since his days in the GE, and then he went on to Raytheon. He's handled international businesses of large corporates across the world in more than 30 countries. He is a business development executive, technical background, and growth in commercial and defense sectors in the US and international based roles. He's had a global experience in Asia, India, Singapore, Japan, Korea, China, Germany, France, Italy, Middle East, Saudi Arabia, UAE, or whatnot. William Blair, let's hear a foreign OEM's perspective of DAP 2020. Ashok Vadavan had asked, where are the orders? Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think, when I also, DAP 2020, but the title also Making India a Global Manufacturing Hub really resonated with me because I think, there's a foundation established, which I'd like to speak briefly to, and a huge future that comes from that. At Lockheed Martin, we established two joint ventures, one as part of Lockheed Martin 10 years ago with Tata down in Hyderabad, and that's building C-130J empennages. And that was before there was a real requirement, at least, a clear and firm requirement for C-130Js, which now there's 10 operating with the Indian Air Force. Sikorsky at the same time set up a joint venture with Tata for building helicopter cabins and aerospace components, and actually now we're building very, very high-end aircraft engine parts, both rotating parts as well as structural parts, I believe. And so there's a tremendous foundation that's set, because then that flowed down to 240 suppliers and then 70 suppliers direct to Lockheed Martin. Why does that matter? Because both of those were set up because there was a strong business case. It was before there was a real requirement, and then that sets the foundation going forward. And so I think we're in a similar mode now, too. And I would echo the comments that were just made about the importance for mobilizing the strategic partner model, because I think that really takes it to the next level in working together with the private sector. That, coupled with DAP 2020, increasing the indigenization requirement up to 50% in most categories, introducing Buy Global, Make in India, BGMI, focus on MRO, raw material, which I've spoke on other forums where that's really needed here in India, not just the acquisition of raw material, the sourcing of it, but also processing, testing, and meeting aerospace and defense grade capabilities. That's imperative to meet these indigenization requirements. But then there's also systems, aircraft systems. And so I can talk about an aircraft platform or a helicopter platform, but it's critical when you look at the 101 items embargo list, that includes radars, other systems trying to start to build aircraft engines here in India. I think that foundation has been set. It's going to take some time to really achieve it. And I think it would be helpful to see some incentives that take us forward in that direction. The other thing that I think is really encouraging, and hopefully there's more that can come out of it as we not just roll out DAP 2020, but see it as it's implemented. And that is the incentivization as it may relate to exports. Companies like Lockheed Martin, we see tremendous opportunity both in the defense and the civil sector for helicopters, as an example. The technologies that are transferred, the TOT that you can look at till date in the two joint ventures that I cited were significant. And there's much, much more to come. My GE days, GE was powering the light combat aircraft back in the late 90s, I think early 2000s in terms of flight test aircraft. So there's a long history, I think, of a collaboration and partnership between U.S. and Indian industry. And I think the opportunities are just much, much greater because now we have the foundation of these foundational agreements in place between U.S. and India that we didn't have 10 years ago. And now just with ABECA being signed yesterday, ISA being signed a year ago, this opens up much greater opportunities for I think, TOT collaboration with industry, because as you get into the aerospace and defense sector, it's going to rely on exchanging of information that is of much more sensitive nature. And then lastly, I would just say that although the DAP 2020 did exclude civil, I think it's important to look at civil and space as enablers for growth, both to meet the Indian requirements as well as exports. And I'm quite confident with the fighter and the helicopter opportunities, the space domain, R&D and 5G, AI and ML, machine learning and quantum computing, where India really is the innovation hub in the globe. If you look at the centers of excellence down in Bangalore and Hyderabad, I think the future is very strong and hopeful that as we can implement some of these opportunities and compete under DAP 2020, that it actually, with a higher FDI content, higher indigenization, and hopefully incentives that help us get there, it's going to translate to self-reliant India as well as the export goals in 2025 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That was very good to hear a foreign OEM's perspective. See the DAP 2020 and I wear the foreign hat. I look at it as a DAP that is pretty much even and pretty well poised for a foreign OEM to enter into this particular thing with buy global manufacture in India at 74%, buy global at 74%, with no offsets in government-to-government procurements, no offsets in single vendor procurements, and with about 50% in the other categories. I think that's a very good incentive that the government has given for the foreign OEMs to look. So when I look at all the categories of, other than probably the IDDM, I find that the foreign OEM can have a great play in the rest of the categories. That's also with IDDM in a very limited way. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you saw that, Bill Blair telling us that it has resonated very well with him, the global manufacturing hub. And that's where India is looking forward to go to. And while we talk about this, we are waiting for the man to speak to us on this subject, who is an authority, who is going to implement it, and who's the one who's going to be seen by the industry as the person to take the Indian defense industry into the next generation, a leap forward generation with all the implementation on his head, on his hands. And he's going to be the person, the go-to man, as we look at. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I see that we are now welcoming Major General P.K. Saini, Vishishta Seva Medal, the Additional Director General Acquisition, who will talk to us and tell us some of the highlights. And I would really like him to focus on two things. One is, are we so sure that we are going to take the Make One as Commodore Mukesh Bhargava had brought out, make one to a very big level, because that's where we see the funding from the government coming in. I was surprised to see that the funding from the government has been reducing over the years. It started with 90%, it came to 80, now it is 70. I do not know where it will go, but Make One not going anywhere, it doesn't matter, but I hope Make One goes through. And secondly, for India to go into a global manufacturing hub, the point that is just raised by Bill Blair to include the civil, aerospace, and space into this the synergistic sectors along with, will that be a good step, and are we looking at it? Over to you, Major General P.K. Saini, Vishishta Seva Medal, Additional Director General Acquisition.
Thank you, Colonel Kuber. It's an honor. And I would like to thank first the ASSOCHAM for the kind of inputs which they provided us during the formulative stage of the DAP. And that is what we've been able to bring out in the final printout, which has been appreciated. And I'm very happy that even today, the speakers have given a very positive response. And this has been done over a period of more than 1 year. And this is first time that we were very open with the industry. It was on the open domain. And I, as even in a person, have been able to interact with individuals, associations, stakeholders, and anybody and everybody till the last day. Even on the day it was being approved, we had inputs and we could incorporate these to the best practices based on the policies of the government. And therefore, I would like to once again thank the ASSOCHAM and all its members for a positive response. As the topic stands for today's webinar is Making India a Global Manufacturing Hub. It's very appropriate subject since the discussion is based on Honorable Prime Minister's clarion call of Atmanirbhar Bharat. The defense reforms, that is this Abhiyan, was announced during the similar time frame when this formulation of DAP was happening. So therefore, our focus of renewing of the DAP was also towards Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India. So while we continue to work towards this aspect, and I shall be highlighting the few important provisions which are aiding towards making India as a global manufacturing hub. I shall also try and address the issues what the members have raised and try to answer to their satisfaction what is best possible. So therefore, when we look at this, aligning with the focus of the subject of making India as a global manufacturing hub, certain core decisions have been incorporated. While the review is based on these core issues of Atmanirbhar and Make in India, but equal importance has also been given to address Indian industry's concerns in terms of ease of doing business. That which are smaller gestures but have major implications, that have been very, with a lot of focus have been addressed, which if you read through the lines, you will understand these. And since the government of India announced the new foreign direct investment policy of around 74% in the automatic route, honoring that commitment, we have also ensured that interests of the Indian industry are safeguarded. And that has been done by two ways. One is redefining the definition of Indian vendor for certain categories, and therefore making sure it is reserved for the domestic industry. And most important out of all this is the reservation for the MSMEs. All projects up to 100 crores in all categories have been reserved for the MSMEs, unless they have minimum 2 participants. If they don't have, then we go to the open industry. So that is one of the important issues which we address, that while we have to encourage making India as a manufacturing hub, at the same time domestic industry also grows and achieves a status where it can compete with the foreign industry. So as already brought out by Colonel Kuber and Commodore Bhargav also, we have added a few new chapters. This has been based on purely on aspects of inputs by industry associations, what are the best practices worldwide available, and the user requirements. For example, leasing. Leasing is a way forward and we cannot run away from it. Similarly, procuring equipment through design and development from DRDO and DPSUs, etc. It was very vague. We have tried to formulate it in a right perspective. Similarly, ICT. Today, every equipment has a large chunk of this component. How do we address obsolescence? How do we address reward system? How do we address verification of such aspects? How do we address security and cyber aspects? That is why ICT chapter has been included. And most important thing which affects the industry today is the post-contract management, which has not been addressed earlier. So maybe it is the problem of payments, LDs, or contract amendments, etc. These have been very deliberately done to ensure that our focus of DAP is also aligned equally towards the industry. So that was the aspect which we have been focusing on. Now coming back to how do we make India as a manufacturing hub? One of the most important categories what we have introduced today is buy global, manufacture in India. There have been discussions over it for last 6 months. So finally what we did was buy and make, we merged it with this category. This is the category which aligns our new government policy on FDI. It gives an opportunity to the international industry to establish manufacturing in India by itself without transfer of technology, or by a joint venture, as also by a transfer of technology. Or also this encourages not only manufacturing for Indian domestic requirement, but also create facilities for exporting. And that is how this category has been one of the game changers for the subject what we are discussing today. But this also allows Indian industry to participate. That has been assured. When we have put in this, the percentage of IC, etc., indigenous content, we have ensured that our domestic industry, the MSMEs, the tier 2 vendors get a better ecosystem for getting a good opportunity to manufacture subcomponents, components, spares, or assemblies, and at the same time be able to export these. So therefore, this is one of the very important balancing act, I would say, while making sure that we have India as a manufacturing hub, we also retain that our ecosystem grows to compete with the world market. So that is why it has been looked at. And why I'm saying this aspect is important is because we give an OEM, if it does not want to share its IPRs or TOT, it still gives him an opportunity to establish, manufacture, sell it to India, as also export outside. So that is how we encourage and attract the foreign direct investment. And the peripheral aspects are being taken care by the indigenous content, participation by Indian vendors, as also what we said earlier, other categories. Now, embargo on imports. This is a major step in line with Atmanirbhar Bharat, as also Make in India. This list has been defined and it has been included in the defense acquisition procedure as was required. And therefore, whenever we seek sanctions, this will play a major role whether we have a capability on this product in India or not. Since Indian defense industry is still evolving vis-a-vis the international standards, so we have to have provisions where we do not fall wanting to buy a certain kind of equipment. So therefore, if you read it carefully, we have also put enablers to buy equipment under various categories of buy Indian, buy and make Indian, and buy global, manufacture in India. Only the catchword here is that buy portion will be zero. So therefore, if we do not have a capability for a particular product, we can still use these categories. Only the foreign OEM will have to establish either a subsidiary or a joint venture or transfer of technology, since the buy component in this would be zero. So there are enabling provisions. It helps both the industries, foreign as well as Indian industry, to continue to do business with India and have a participation in the Indian defense industry. See, what we were talking earlier was make 3 procedure. Firstly, I'll answer your question about make 1. Make 1 earlier formulation has a lot of challenges. I was very closely associated with FICV, BMS, to some extent TCS also, which is still under various stages. But the challenges were the procedure itself. It was very complex, very subjective. There were chances, though I was part of this whole process of evaluation, I also felt there were requirement of being more objective. So that was one of the reasons we had a lot of litigations, oppositions, complaints in earlier processes. So the first thing we redrafted, you see this chapter, has been rewritten, make 1, to make sure our selection procedure of DAs is very, very simplified. It does not have so much of subjectivity. Other than the financial and technical gates, all other aspects are purely on commercial. And this basic guidelines or principles have been evolved with a lot of deliberations with the industry, some of you who are sitting here. So this is how we came into this. The second part is the cost funding part. When we analyze the funding part, let me assure you, previous projects were overrated. Now also we have had cases. Though we are defining this limit of 250 crores or something, but it is not sacrosanct. If the project is more than this, there are provisions in the DAP that you can seek more funds and the government will be ready to give those funds. So it is, we have seen in 3, 4 or 5 projects, wherever people had quoted 2,500 crores, finally reworking out the cost aspects came to 350 crores. So 70% of 250 means around 350 crores or maybe 400 crores. So this takes care of that. Second is the process has been simplified, made more objective. And I am sure hereafter, if you have any of the cases which are moving, it will go through. And since we are there for some time in this chair and we'll be there to facilitate all this in as per the guidelines available. Now the Make 3 chapter, which has been part which has been added this year, has been with a lot of deliberations. There were 2 basic aspects on this. One was import substitution, because focus is on Atmanirbhar Bharat, as also on Make in India, and encouraging our own domestic industry to do the needful to a greater extent. The focus on Make 3 was primarily as import substitution. It was primarily making the same components or subsystems or systems or the equipment in India. So either the industry comes and manufacture it here, or they establish a subsidiary or a TOT or a JV, and we get those components. You don't have to spend in euros and dollars, but we spend in Indian rupees and buy it from directly either Indian industry or a joint venture with the OEM. So this is one of the greatest enablers to have subsystems, systems, even the macro equipment, also the major equipment also under this. And this category is open to even the higher FDI also. This is one category which has been kept open, because if we have to have an FDI of appropriate level, we have to give equal opportunities to foreign OEM. And this is one of the enablers in this. Now, the other aspects, without being specific, there are a lot of what I say is reading between the lines, which is ease of doing business, which has been focused upon. The procedures have been simplified. Some of these you have already highlighted, timelines of all aspects, all stages of procurement, simplification of timelines. We have reduced the number of steps within the organization, within the MOD and the service headquarters for processing these. Trials is one of the major game changes we have done. We have done so much of enabling to try and have single stage trials, try and have simulated trials or certification by vendors. these are the enablers which service headquarters is being directed to utilize so that the process of whole selection is very competitive, simpler, and transparent. We have
That's
also
fantastic.
given provision in this also. Rather, even today we are working on how to identify what further parameters can be done through simulations or certifications, which are the industry in India, whether private or government, who have these facilities. So my team is already working on this. So I'll just take 2-3 minutes more and close up. But
there's one question we want to ask you, if you don't mind. While we are waiting for the RRM to join us in about 10 minutes from here, so we have 2 more speakers to go, but there is one issue which I'm going to come back to you. Despite various pro-MSME policy announcements, MSMEs continue to struggle. Support needs to be extended to MSMEs on ground level issues. Earnest money deposit exemption to MSME is not being honored in certain institutions, such as army procurement, leaving MSMEs vulnerable. Financial stipulation lays down in RFI lead to situations which preclude most MSMEs, despite projects being targeted to MSMEs vendors. I'm going to come back to you for this question because I'll take on the other 2 speakers. I'm coming back to you. I'm coming back to you on two other things. One is the PMU, the setting up of the PMU, and this entire thing of, I really like the ecosystem of the MSMEs and the reservations less than 100 crores. The other thing is on MTOT. When are we going to select a private industry partner? And in Make One, when are we going to select a private industry partner, production agency? Or is it again going to be the DPSU manner? So I think I'm going to come back to you on that. And while I do this, I want to invite Dr. Mayank Dwivedi for a quick update to us. Dr. Dwivedi is Scientist G, the director of DIITM, MTech in polymer technology from Delhi. He's a doctorate from IIT Delhi, a recipient of gold medal, and a very wonderful gentleman. Dr. Mayank Dwivedi, you got about 3 to 4 minutes, sir. We are waiting for the RRM.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I understand the time we are running against the time. First of all, all the eminent panelists, all the industrialists, ASSOCHAM officials, very good afternoon to you all. In 3 to 4 minutes, I will like to say only one thing, that last 2 or 3 years, I am seeing very closely that government of India and specifically Ministry of Defense, they are bringing out the policies which are to support the defense manufacturing sector. It has started from IDEX, then it came to recently that 101 list, that import negative list, then 108 list of DRDO, then the policies regarding the testing facilities for the industries, then freeing the DRDO patents for the industries, then making the norms very easy for the transfer of technology, then allowing industry to use DRDO R&D facilities for their support if they want to develop certain products, etc. In nutshell, I will say that we all are synergized together to work towards that direction. The beauty is this: earlier we used to make our policies, that will be any organization associated with the Ministry of Defense, in isolation. Today we look at DAP 2020 or earlier DPP 2016, just to dovetail our policy so that it becomes very smooth transition. Whatever product we manufacture, design and develop, and when it is manufactured, there should not be any problem. Now recently we have introduced a policy whereby we are nominating production agency or DCPP we are appointing right from the beginning of the project, so that while armed forces are procuring through acquisition, that time there is no problem at all. There are various issues, like one very important thing in a minute I will tell you regarding the how to go about the exports. We have made very important document which is SOP for the export, because by the time any industry plan to export to respond to RFI and take the permission or NOC from DP, Department of Production, that time what happens, that timeline is missed. And many times DRDO developed products which are indigenous products, they are not able to finalize the specification or respond to RFI. For that we have facilitated the industries, and today morning itself I have cleared 2 such cases where the industries are going to respond to RFI for 100 meters submarine suit and also some MRE, that ration for some European country. So that's how every aspect we are trying to support industry, and we are making our policies together with the ministry so that we are dovetailing and we are complementing each other. That's how we are able to support the industries quite well. Now, the last point I will say, because 3 or 4 minutes I cannot complete many things, but one very important thing I will say, that regarding the future challenges and opportunities. Here I will say 3 things are very, very important, because I myself, being Director Industry Interface and handling almost 2,300 industries, including SMEs and major industries, and 14,000 plus industries in my ecosystem. 3 things I am finding where we have to very much concentrate, and time and again we are requesting from DRDO side, if you want any support, we are there for all your industries. Number 1 is the quality and reliability. When we are releasing 108 number list, when we are talking 181 import embargo list, when we are talking about 200 crores, below 200 crores that import ban list, all such things are going to be successful only when we are going to support in quality and reliability. Other armed forces, how will they accept those things? I am finding this quality which is built in the design. We have to be very, very careful about it. Here we have to score. We know the technology, we have the product, but quality and reliability is very major issue. In my kind of request, we have to look into it very carefully. Second thing, I will say materials. We have the technology, but we do not have the requisite materials just to transfer those materials into the product. Either we do not have the materials at all, or we do not have the processing technology, how to convert those materials into useful products. I think in the area of materials, DRDO is also concentrating a lot, and I think it is a need of the hour today that collectively we, along with the private industries, academia, together, we have to attack, let it be high, that exotic material like carbon fiber, glass fiber, or the high-end ceramics, or it may be some specialty alloys. People are coming up, the industries are there, but we have to focus on that, this area. Third and last thing I will say, IPR. Whatever we do, whatever we are developing, I think we should have complete rights with us. We sometimes, our documentation, we do not take care much, and that's how the IPR we are not able to hold. And finally, we find we are losing that area. I think proper documentation will ensure the IPR, and that's how, until unless all these things we take care of, I think we will not be able to make indelible mark in the defense manufacturing and export, specifically in export. And export is very essential because, as our Honorable Prime Minister told, that 5 billion target by 2025 we have to achieve. I think a major role is going to be played by defense manufacturers. I think with this, I will sum up. I think the ecosystem very poised. We are the ease of doing business, the type of policies, they are very much poised. We are synergized together. Armed forces are the main stakeholder. Whatever we do, it is for the armed forces. So they are the prime stakeholders. Along with them, DRDO, S&T organizations like institution, IITs, etc., and industry. We all are together working towards the goal. And I think with that, we will be making India a self-reliant and Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir. Jai Hind, Dr. Dwivedi. That was very nice. You talked about IPR. You can own. You can't go and sell somebody else's house. You have to own your house if you have to sell it. So if you have to export, you've got to own it yourself, and owning is through IPR. And I think that's a very important point that you made, and the extension of the R&D facilities. I wish we could have deliberated a little more on the DCPP model, because that's what is interesting to the industry at this point in time. Well, I'll come to the DCPP model if we have some time a little later. And I was reminded of Srimad Bhagavad Gita when Duryodhana was briefing Acharya, Dronacharya on the battle. He talked about Ananta Vijaya. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthiraha Nakula Sahadevascha Sugosha Mani Pushpaka. Ananta Vijaya, everlasting victory. And I really like to talk about Ananta Vijaya because I'm going to invite the chairman and managing director of Ananta Technology, and a very technologically invested company, a company that has invested a lot in R&D, a company that has done extremely well in space, a company which has done it has done design, development, and fabrication of satellites. It has done the Indian launch vehicle program by way of making avionic subsystems And it has contributed a lot to DRDO, it has contributed a lot to ISRO, BDL, BrahMos, Army, Air Force. Well, I'm going to call up Dr. Subbarao Pavluri to tell us two things. Sir, I want you to tell, how can MOD incentivize R&D? It is one thing to say, invest in R&D, invest in R&D. I mean, it's good to give lectures to the industry, but how can the MOD act? While DRDO can invest in R&D because money into DRDO, whereas when when a private industry invests in R&D, it is its own money without expectation of reward. So therefore, I want you to talk about this before we invite the Honorable Raksha Rajya Mantri. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Colonel Kuber. In fact, the R&D part which we are mentioning to you, when you come under Make 2, which the government of India is talking about, you put your money, you do your job, then come back, and there'll be a dozen of the people have been doing it, then if you are successful into that, you will do the job 1 to 1. In the process, what is happening is, the people who also put equal amount of effort in that, will not be gaining anything from that. So that does not amount to any kind of support from the defense ministry to any one of the R&D activities in the country. Instead, you must say that there could be a failure, there could be a success as part of it, but still some activity should go on to everybody. Suppose there are 6 people have been identified doing an activity. All 6 people must get some benefit out of it at the end of the day. When they submitted the whole process as part of it, I think they should get some benefit out of that. Then only the people can participate more effectively into it. And instead of that, treat this as again L1, again L2 part of it, that will not get into the R&D at all. So my request to the ministry is always that, you should look at the R&D as R&D, not R&D as one of the ventures into the, getting something out of that, as a low cost part of it. Then only things will happen positively in this respect. However, so that's beside, you can look at the model from ISRO. There's a lot of research happens both within that and a response program outside the ISRO with the universities, with the industry. So that's where, the successful models have been coming up into that area. So therefore, like this in CSR laboratories and the private industry, a lot of models already available in this country. So I request you to look at them. That I can tell you briefly on that. Since we are running against time, only 2 minutes more left out. Maybe we can go to the next part of the program, the Colonel Kuber.
Colonel Kuber, if I can add
yes, you should, sir, you should. I was going to call you anyway, because he makes a very interesting point.
Of the R&D world over, defense R&D is funded by the government. My good friend Bill can confirm that. There is hardly any place where industry funds for an R&D unless there is a commitment of procurement of that product. With this notwithstanding, there are industries, and my company being one, who have invested almost 4 to 5% of their profits into R&D without any expectation of an order. This cannot happen with any and every company. And therefore, there is a need for incentives and funding from the government for the R&D. There was an incentive in terms of income tax rebate of 200% of what money you're putting in. That rebate was withdrawn by Ministry of Finance 2 years back. Instead of giving more incentives, the available incentives have been taken away. And then we've been told again and again by MOD that industry should invest in R&D. Yes, we should. But then there should be a commitment to order or incentives in terms of either funding. Funding is there 100% for DRDO. But for the industry, there is zero funding. And that is something which cannot happen if we really want to become Atmanirbhar and we want to bring IPs which are owned by Indian companies. Government has to fund industry. And the model can be worked out. We have enough ideas on that. Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Dr. Subbarao. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can I answer 2 points?
General Saini, you should. You should. I wanted to call you back.
Firstly is regarding MTOT. I just want to, with a lot of, positivity, share with you. It is para 48 to 50 of chapter 2, which allows private industry to be given TOT for maintenance infrastructure. So that point very certainly we have incorporated. And if you read it carefully, all private industry gets the opportunity.
Well, General Saini, Well, Jensen, if you don't mind, I must tell you that this provision was there since 2006. I've been following the DPP since DPP 2006, and not a single instance of a private industry has been done in MTOT. Well, this is not a new provision.
See, that is what we are all evolving, and today even the service headquarters are aligned to.
So nice to hear. You're muted, sir.
Yeah, now it is okay.
Yeah, please.
Now, the second point is with respect to MSMEs, whether this IPBGs, etc., should be waived off. This was discussed a lot. When we went into the actual value, it was hardly any for the cost they were being allowed to invest. It was around 15 to 20 lakhs, to upper limit was around 50, 60 lakhs. So the second part is the kind of opportunities we are giving them up to around 150 crores. There are no gates for them for selection. They are participating. So this was after due deliberation with the industry. We continue to retain that part. And the last point what you raised was PMUs. PMU has been approved. We have got the sanction. We are already in the process of hiring the specialist who will be a positive interface, not only within the ministry and the service headquarters, but also with the industry. Any issue which is raised will be deliberated. There will be senior officers with requisite experience. And I think in next 1 or 2 months, we should be able to see this getting into application in that format.
Yeah.
And last point, if you have time, can I speak? Sir, can I speak?
Please.
Yeah, this is regarding R&D. I do agree it's a costly hobby. 2 years back, I was member of evaluation of Indian industry on certain aspects. A lot of industry said, we have capability, we have R&D. But when we went on ground, it was few of those companies who had R&D. Today in the DAP, we have said, Buy Indian IDDM is totally indigenous design. And if you do not have R&D, you cannot produce or participate in these. So R&D is a necessity, but we are making sure that DPSUs are not given due unnecessarily advantage over the private industry. Progressively, we are reducing that. That is my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ajay Saini. That was so nice of you to have addressed that. And the RFQs, as far as the NGO procurements and other things are concerned, we are going to address that issue which has been raised regarding the MSMEs as we go forward. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are very eagerly awaiting the arrival of the Honorable Raksha Rajya Mantri. And it is just a question of time. I think we're just waiting for him in about a minute or so. He's going to be joining us and for the plenary session. While we wait for him, and since we are on this topic of R&D, I'll once again come back to Dr. Subbarao Pavluri. You have invested in R&D, and you have done so much good in the ISRO and to DRDO and all that. You tell me once again, if the government were to really incentivize, can they give you some tax benefits and at least for the investments that you do in R&D?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, so Commodore Bharat mentioned earlier, there were incentives given earlier and from the Department of Science and Technology too for the R&D part of it in terms of some tax exemptions related activities. But these days that have been completely removed. See, the tax, it cannot be the purview, it can't be taxed only by industry itself. It has to be supported by the government in terms of the amount of funding onto that. So therefore, my point is, you do R&D, give me the product, what I wanted, then I'll give you the kind of, that takes a long route. And the SMEs, for example, you come to MSMEs, many of the MSMEs cannot, cannot invest something like about 20 crores or 30 crores to the
Thank you.
Therefore, it is necessary to give some exemption, maybe some support in this regard.
Thank you, Dr. Subbarao from Anand Technologies. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got great pleasure A very, very great pleasure in welcoming our Raksha Rajya Mantri to this conference on ASSOCHAM DAP 2020, the knowledge partners being Ernst & Young India. DAP 2020, making India a global manufacturing hub. And our Raksha Rajya Mantri is very, very passionate about taking India to the levels that the global world will be very eager to see. As a dynamic and a progressive democracy, the largest democracy in the world, I think here with the leaders of Shripad Nayak sir, I think we are going to see a great India, an India which is enabled, an India which is empowered, and an India which stands tall. And I must introduce the minister to this lovely audience. We've got more than about 150 people attending this conference today. Born on 4th October 1952, and being a Union Minister of State in the Ministry of Ayurveda, Yoga, Naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, Homeopathy, Ayush, and the Minister of State for Defense. A former Union Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare. He is the Member of Parliament from North Goa constituency, representing, all of us know, the Bharatiya Janata Party. He hails from the Adpai village, North Goa district. In 1999, he was elected to the 13th Lok Sabha, North Goa constituency, and 2019, he held a seat in this constituency, winning in 2004, 2009, 2014, 2019. He is a member of the 17th Lok Sabha, and he won with a margin of more than 105,000 votes, which is very, very high for a small state like Goa. As advised by the Prime Minister Narendra Damodar Das Modi, the President has appointed Shripad Yeso Nayak as the Minister of Culture and Tourism in the 16th Lok Sabha. He was appointed as Minister of State in the Ministry of Ayush, Government of India on 9th November 2014. In 2016, he publicly stated he had access to research which proved that diseases such as cancer could be cured by yoga. He further stated the ministry was a year away from granting endorsement to such techniques and research. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what I really know of our Honorable Raksha Rajya Mantri is that he believes, and he truly believes that we have to declare strategic independence. Declaration of strategic independence in the strategic sector of defense is the prime motive of our Honorable Raksha Rajya Mantri. Sir, we welcome you to this conference. And to honor you, I have great privilege in inviting the Secretary General of ASSOCHAM, Mr. Deepak Sood, an industry leader with 2.5 decades of experience in corporate India, government and Fortune 500 companies. He took over as the Secretary General in the country's apex business chamber. He worked as Executive Director of CII. He was Deputy CEO Invest Karnataka. He is the investment promotion arm of the Karnataka government. He worked with Posco, Burma Castrol Company, L&T, Total Fina, ABB Group at different positions. Over to you, sir, Mr. Deepak Sood.
Colonel Kuber, thank you so much. I was not aware that I'm going to be introduced so elaborately. Thank you so much for doing that. And my words of welcome, Honorable Rajya Raksha Mantri ji, Namaskar. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, evening. We are so grateful to you that when we come to you with a request, you are always so favorable towards our request. And thank you so much for all the opportunities that you've given ASSOCHAM and its membership to have audience with you, share our views, get our concerns registered, and celebrate success with you as well when things are happening. So let me also thank all the other panelists who are with us this afternoon. I was on this call for some time and I was hearing quite a few things. And obviously a person who has not spent time in defense but understand manufacturing on a broader sense. So sir, जो चीज मुझे बहुत अच्छे से लगती है, which connects almost everything, and I'm going to speak in English because of William Blair, who's also online, and I would not break into Hindi because for his benefit, because otherwise we will have one person and maybe more in the audience who may not be able to pick up what I wanted to say. I think Atmanirbhar Bharat of the clarion call of Prime Minister of India, it's a very inclusive thing which talks about capability of India to produce the best product which is sold to India and the world. So it's a completely inclusive statement, and ASSOCHAM stands with that as a very crucial importance factor. ASSOCHAM represents a cross section of industry, which is large, medium, and small. So when I say, I'm also going to say this, that we have a lot of local capabilities that exist. They may not be in the area of defense, but they have a lot of capability. For example, an auto component company can definitely make a tractor part, can definitely make a railway part, and they are the ones who are also making defense components and parts as well. And therefore, they're also working in the space industry. So what we have is a local capability, just that we need to help them scale up. And people like Dr. Subba Rao, who are doing a lot of work in R&D, and so many other companies as well. So therefore, one sees an opportunity, sir, with the transparency because of DAP coming through. There's a lot of confidence building that will happen through within the Indian industry and the international industry. You'll see a lot of technology transfer, joint ventures, collaborations that are going to take place. There were words that were used, and I'm not going to elaborate much on that, but I think that's the backbone of all industry if it has to grow on its own, which is quality, reliability. We have to create this value chain within India and outside of India, which is talking about capability of the existing people and scaling that up and creating more people in. We spoke about, I heard Dr. Dwivedi talk about materials and IPR regime, and there's no disagreement on that. Till the time you don't have something of your own, you will not be able to export. And I think R&D plays a very, very crucial role. Industry has some suggestions on this, and I would request you and urge you to do consider that very favorably, because defense needs enough and more impetus that needs to be given so that we develop our local capabilities, keeping in mind that international companies are as domestic as they create a lot of value chain, supply chain from within India to outside of India. So therefore, it's crucially important to keep all people together to ensure there's collaboration that takes place. And finally, sir, we work very elaborately with the government on ease of doing business, but cost of doing business is also something that one will have to keep in mind. And when we say cost of doing business, not on the procedure side alone, but I think this is a wake-up call for the industry as well, because we need to produce material which is more cost effective, and that goes across the board. So with these words, thank you so much, each one of you, for joining us this afternoon. Thank you so much, Mr. Raksha Mantriji, for joining us this afternoon once again. Thank you so much, and back to you, Colonel Kuber.
Mr. Deepak, so thank you so much for actually emphasizing on the point of cost of doing business and the cost to the industry. At this time, since our Honorable Raksha Rajya Mantri is there, while we declare the strategic independence, I also want to talk about cost to country. All the time, the MOD talks about L1, and that is a cost to the government. But what is the cost to the country? Even if it is L2 or L3, if the system is superior, if it is effective for the armed forces, and if the money is flowing down in Indian rupees to our own country, it multiplies manifold as it goes down the supply chain. And therefore, I think the while we talk about this, I have great pleasure in welcoming the man who supplied the bulletproof jackets to the Indian Armed Forces, and an MTech and PhD in chemical engineering from the prestigious IIT Mumbai, the chairman of the SM Group of Industries. He started SMPP in the year 85 by setting up a paper pulp packaging products, another company which has invested extensively in R&D, because he's got only engineers and researchers, and that's where, it's one of the top 5 companies and the only company in Asia to produce the unique ceramics which capable of stopping almost all kinds of bullets. Well, without much ado, may I welcome Dr. Kansal to give his address.
Thank you, Colonel Kuber, for his very extensive introduction. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak Sood, for handing over the charge to me. Honorable Raksha Rajya Mantri ji, Shri Shripad Nayak ji, Ms. General P.K. Saini, VSM, Technical Manager, Land System, Shri Sanjay Jaju ji, Joint Secretary, DIP, Dr. Mayank Dwivedi, Director, DITM, DRDO, Mr. Salil Gupte, Chairman, ASSOCHAM, National Council on Aerospace and Defense, and President, Boeing India, Colonel Kuber, KB Kuber, Director and Aerospace Defense, Ondanjiang, a khajana of knowledge I can definitely acknowledge. He's a knowledge partner, but himself is a full of khajana, full of knowledge. Yes, no doubt, for every field. Other panelists, officers from MOD and Defense Services, members from the industry, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of ASSOCHAM, I feel honored to welcome our Honorable Raksha Raja Mantri ji, the elite group of speakers and all participants on this important plenary session on making India a global manufacturing hub. DAP has been aligned with the Honorable Prime Minister's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat for empowering the Indian domestic industry and achieving self-reliance in the defense sector. A first look at the DAP 2020 ushers a sense of change as one sees the word procurement replaced by acquisition. This signals an intention. The intention is to adopt a more assertive and a more proactive position of the buyer or acquire a product of his choosing on his terms rather than just trying to procure something for fulfilling one's needs. The DAP document not only focuses on simplifying the defense acquisition procedure but also provides monitoring mechanism with concurrent actions using digital technologies and database. It gives opportunity to capable vendors and enable selection of best equipment in the transparent, competitive manners. DAP, along with DPEPP, that is Defense Production and Export Promotion Policy, will have far-reaching impact in defense and aerospace industry on multiple counts. Procedures such as fast-track procurements have been simplified, which will now allow speedy procurement of already in-service tried and tested equipment, ensuring equipment availability at the hands of our soldiers. Sir, to conclude my remarks, the industry is very grateful to MOD staff as we find a sea change in their helping, proactive, and an understanding attitude towards the industry. I would like to specifically mention about the magical efforts of Department of Defense Production and Mr. Sanjay Jaju in particular, which have acted as a catalyst in enhancing India's defense exports from 0.2 billion USD to 1.2 billion USD in just 3 years. I'm very hopeful that the DAP 2020 combined with DPEPP will bring about some major improvements in our defense production and exports in the coming years. And I look forward a very enlightening and a participative session today. Thank you. Thank you, Jai Hind. I thank all the members also. Thank you so much. Thank you, ASSOCHAM.
Thank you, Dr. Kansal, for that short and wonderful speech. I really like Raksha Raja Mantri ji. He says, you cannot become what you want to be by remaining what you are. And that's what Dr. Kansal says, not me. So he is, his company produces some unique products. They export to France, Israel, Germany, Japan, Egypt, USA, Singapore, Indonesia, Turkey, Philippines, Bulgaria, and some protection kits for Airbus A400M and helicopters. They are also the proud suppliers of about more than 186,138 bulletproof jackets, 22,000 bulletproof helmets to state military forces, the paramilitary forces, the armed forces. And he's also the president of Palwal Industry and started with a humble beginning in the year 1967 with that motto, which I said, you cannot become what you are by remaining what you want to be by remaining where you are. So with this, I think that's a very good thing we had from two technologists today. One is Dr. Subbarao Pavluri from Anand Technologies and Dr. S.C. Kansal from... so two technology-oriented companies have talked to us. And now we are going to look to another large OEM. We had a very good resonating effect from Bill Blair when he said that, you know, the whole topic of making India a global manufacturing hub resonates with him. And we are going to talk to the next big guy here in the US. And Salil is the president of Boeing India and senior in-country executive who integrates and advances Boeing's activities in India. Commercial airplanes, global services, Boeing Defense Security, leading a team of more than 3,500 employees across New Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai and Chennai. Previously, he was vice president of Boeing Capital Corporation, wholly owned subsidiary. He is the chairman of the ASSOCHAM's National Council of Aerospace and Defense. And before joining Boeing, he worked with Citigroup and Goldman Sachs as an investment banker. An MBA from Stanford, BA in economics from Cornell. That is Salil Gupte for you. What, ladies and gentlemen, what I have not told you yet is that he's sitting on more than about $4.5 billion of offsets with him. So if anybody has to speak to him, it is we have got to catch hold of him and see that we get our due, and he is there to support us, to support the Indian industry. He engages with a large amount of industry, and therefore we look forward to his support. And I want Salil to talk about an OEM's perspective with regards to the DAP as well as the offsets. Over to you, Salil.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Colonel Kube, for your introduction. I'm Honorable Raja Raksha Mantri, and ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to join you here for the plenary portion of today's session. I hope I'm audible. It's a very interesting point that you made. Of course, Boeing in India is extremely proud yes, of course, we have a significant amount of offset requirements. We're extremely proud to date to have actually exceeded all of the commitments we have made contractually to the ministry on those requirements. It is requiring a significant amount of cooperation with Indian industry, as you can imagine, to do that. And as Secretary General Sood mentioned, I will give my remarks in English as well. I was joking with some of my colleagues, noting that when I usually meet the Honorable Raja Raksha Mantri, given all of the time he spent in Mumbai and Pune, I usually do my meetings in Marathi. But if I were to do that here, probably only a quarter of the people would understand me, so I'm going to stick to English. I want to take a minute, and before I get into some of the industry and offset element, I want to talk about the process of DAP, because I'm so incredibly proud of this ASSOCHAM team in terms of its contributions and partnership with the Ministry of Defense working towards DAP. There was a lot of emotion, there was a lot of fire, a lot of very, very disparate opinions about how we should put together a DAP 2020 that would enable India to be able to take that next step towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. And I will say that of all of the organizations that certainly we at Boeing were involved in, ASSOCHAM was the one that gave the most balanced assessment of, taking into account what was needed for the nation, taking into account what was needed for Indian industry, what was needed for the nation, what was executable by Indian industry, and what was executable were taken into account by ASSOCHAM during a very difficult time.
Salil, there's a lot of crosstalk happening, please. If something is on mute.
Yeah, so if everyone can go on mute, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. So that was, I think, an incredible accomplishment. Honorable RM, DAP and DPE PP 2020 are both going to build upon the Prime Minister's vision of Atmanirbhar. Those steps that are in there, such as increasing FDI, these are going to go a long way towards harnessing the potential of Indian industry. Now, companies like Boeing, as my colleague Bill from Lockheed noted also, we've been embedded in the aerospace and defense system for a while now. And Boeing views what needs to be done in India as building an ecosystem. This is not about one offset deal. This is not about one company. This is about leveraging the commitments that we have to build a community of companies in the Indian industry that can deliver the capabilities that India needs to take that next step to be a global manufacturing hub in defense. And this means partnering not only with large companies, many of which I'm seeing on my screen here today, but also those MSMEs that are going to be the next large companies. There was a very large study done by McKinsey, and I apologize to our knowledge partner for bringing up one of their competitors, but I feel it's an important point. They mentioned that there's a gap in that middle of there's large companies in India, and then we jump to the MSMEs, but there need to be more of those middle to large size companies. It's those MSMEs that we're going to bring into that space to be able to upskill. And all of that takes significant focus and investment. So what we at Boeing have done is we have built our supply chain team here in India to over 60 individuals here in India, for India. They're actually based out of Bangalore. And we develop MSMEs to take that next step. I can proudly say that it was an Indian MSME that has twice won Boeing's Global Supplier of the Year award in the last 5 years alone. 10 years ago, that would have been unthinkable, but that has happened, an Indian MSME. And so we're incredibly proud of that. And I think the DAP 2020 is going to further encourage companies like Boeing to do that. Out of 220 suppliers in India that Boeing works with, and as you mentioned, those discharges, some of those offsets with today, around 24, 25 of them are MSMEs today. And so we expect that we'll continue to grow that going forward. We've already talked, many I think speakers have already talked about building local capability through indigenous modes of acquisition. The new negative import list will drive part of that, but new modes like Buy Global and Manufacture in India are going to also encourage investment in niche technology and develop the overall aerospace and defense system here. One thing that I would note that I don't think has been raised yet today is that there are additional policies that we need to address to try to carry forward this reform momentum. Updates to things like the Defense Procurement Manual is going to be equally important to address the need to bring localized and modernized sustainment to the defense platforms. Because let's remember, everything that all of us do here, in addition to for Make in India, manufacturing, and Atmanirbhar Bharat, everything that we do here is to ensure that the Indian soldier, that the members of the Indian Defense Services, whether it's Army, whether it's Navy, whether it's Air Force, have the equipment that they need to be effective in their mission. And the great platforms are part of that. The great technology is part of that. But the maintenance and sustainment of those platforms is equally important. And so that DPM is going to be important to then establishing Indian capability to be able to do that. So I would just raise that as a point as to what's next that we also need to pay some attention to in the pursuit of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Colonel Kuber and to the Secretary General.
Thank you very much, Salil. That was very good. I really liked when you said the armed forces should get the best, and they should get what is most effective in operations. And the maintenance and sustenance of these systems need to be addressed. And I think the DAP has done a wonderful job in actually talking a little bit of the aftermarket when we talk about the post-contract management. And they have integrated certain aspects of the DPM already in the DPP to make it easy for the revenue procurement to take it on from there. But I think that was very good. And we look forward to companies like Boeing to actually take these MSMEs who got twice, who get awards twice, not twice, it must be 200 times. And that's what we are looking at. A repeated excellence is what should define the Indian defense industry. And I want to tell you a little story, Raksha Rajamantriji and all panelists. It was on February 5, I met a young girl who was standing in a stall, and she was talking about bulletproof jackets, night vision devices, and so many other technology gadgets. So out of curiosity, I just asked that girl, can you tell me the ITCHS code of this night vision device? And she rattled out 90041234. She just rattled out a number, an 8-figure ITCHS code, and I was pretty impressed. Then I asked her, what's your name? She said, Prachi. And then I asked her, how does this night vision device work? And then she said, I actually went for trials, and I was in the jungles and I was actually seeing this, and that defines a company. And I must talk about this company because this has been in the news for a long time, and they have a foray into armor, which till date remains the main forte and the flagship product range of the group. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking to you about MKU. And Neeraj Gupta, I have great pleasure in welcoming him, an old friend. And this little girl who I talked to you was his niece, Prachi Gupta. Neeraj is a passionate entrepreneur, visionary, flair for international business development. By default, a networking marketer with a keen sense of branding and brand promotion, he constantly explores new horizons and actually pushes them. It is this drive that propelled them into electro-optics. I talked about electro-optics. I talked about that young girl from the family who had her finger and her mind on the 8-figure ITCHS code, and where it is exported. She could tell me a graph of how it gets exported. Aerospace components foreign to arms ammunition. A leading exporter and a manufacturer, MKU headquartered in Kanpur in the heart of the UP corridor. And actually, I met them there. They are very passionate about the UP corridor, and they are doing a great job over there. Keen interest in technology and product excellence is what they do, with strong determination to build global business. And I hand over to Neeraj to take it on from here.
Thank you, Colonel Kuber, for this illustrious and a detailed introduction that you made for us. Thank you so much. Honorable Shri Shripad Yesu Naik Ji, Raksha Rajya Mantri Ji, Shri Sanjay Jaju Ji, IAS Joint Secretary, Ministry of Defence, Dr. Mayank Dwivedi, Director, DIITM DRDO, Major General P.K. Saini, Technical Manager, Land Systems, Shri Salil Gupte, Chairman, ASSOCHAM National Council on Aerospace and Defence, Dr. S.C. Kansal, Chairman, ASSOCHAM National Council on Aerospace and Defence, Colonel Kuber, and Indian Army veteran and Director, Aerospace and Defence, Ernst & Young, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you all. At the outset, I would like to express my gratitude to Shri Shripad Naik Ji and Shri Sanjay Jaju Ji for their gracious presence, and thank ASSOCHAM for organizing their webinar on a very topical and important subject. Ever since the government decided that defense is not of strategic importance, but is also of very important tool for industrial development, it has been taking series of measures and policy decisions aimed at galvanizing the industry. From encouraging participation of the private industry in the defense manufacturing to facilitating defense exports, procedural and policy changes have steadily been implemented to make this happen. The government and the Ministry of Defense in particular, especially Department of Defense Production, needs to be complimented for their efforts. The promulgation of the DAP 2020 is another step in this direction. It was envisaged as a major administrative reform, not only for ease of doing business, but also to use the defense procurement system to galvanize manufacturing and investment in the sector. The focus on increasing Indian content from 40 to 50% is a very welcome step, which will encourage Indian industry for investment on R&D and increase domestic value addition. Our company, MKU, is doing a bit of its effort in achieving more indigenization in defense manufacturing by investing in R&D, hiring required talent, generating its own IPs for production of materials and electro-optic components in the country. This not only helps us move up the value chain, but also helps in better product customization for our Indian defense and paramilitary forces and international customers as well. The DAP 2020, lot of hope and confidence specifically to the Indian industry. However, there are certain areas which, if reconsidered, could provide an even greater fillip to the Indian defense industry. Increase offset multiplier for sourcing from industries located in defense corridor could provide a major thrust to the corridors. It would be a great incentive for foreign OEMs to source from these industries, which will not only help these units to grow, but will also attract investment in the corridor. It is therefore suggested that higher multiplier be allowed to OEMs for sourcing eligible products from industries located in the corridors. Exclusion of civil aerospace and homeland security from the list of eligible products for offsets is another case in point. The synergy between aerospace and homeland security and defense is evident. The advancements in these sectors impact the development of the defense sector. There are a number of examples started with civil aerospace riding on direct offset orders and have progressed successfully into defense sector. We request that these two important aspects may kindly be relooked upon. This will add to strengthening of the defense manufacturing ecosystem in the country.
That's right.
At the end, I would once again like to compliment the Ministry of Defense for really making the industry feel wanted, for making all the right moves, and for truly opening up the defense private industry. Sir, we are all with you and would like to reassure you that the industry will put its best foot forward and stand by the government to realize our Honorable Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Neeraj. I think those two are very important aspects that you brought out, including of the sectors. Well, I think I'm very sure our Honorable Minister is taking a very keen note of this. And what I really remember of you is I want to recollect to this audience and to our Honorable Minister that in the year 2016, I recall, then Raksha Mantri ji, Mr. Parikar asked you a question because you committed to him that you'll do 200 crores of exports that year. And he asked you a question, where have you reached? And you said, I've exceeded 200 crores. I think that was a very, very big thing. And we are very proud of companies like yours forwards in this journey. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are here once again back to an OEM who's going to be jumping with joy. I remember Ashmita talking about, should I jump with joy on this DAP? I think she's going to tell us whether she's jumping with joy or not. As the president of Pratt & Whitney Corporation and the senior most in-country leader, she provides strategic direction for the company's growth and business goals in India and drives all of Pratt & Whitney's new initiatives in India, including customer relations, global supply chain, engineering, training centers, as well as communication and government affairs. She brings in more than 20 years of experience in defense and aerospace, distinguished career in corporate public affairs, communications, and she's been with Boeing, she's been with Rolls-Royce. Well, I think she's the right place now. She's also the chairperson of the Civil Aviation Committee of ASSOCHAM and co-chair of National Aerospace in FICCI, and also with the CII. And with the potential to support growth in the commercial airlines, India is already an adopter of the geared turbofan engine. Well, Ashmita, while you talk, I want you to tell me, since aero engines have been declared as projects of national importance in the DAP 2020, what is Pratt & Whitney's role and what role would you like to play in India? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colonel Kuber, and thank you, Rajya Raksha Mantri ji and Shri Sanjay Jaju ji for giving me this opportunity to speak on this esteemed panel. I'll just come to the engine technology in a brief while, but first of all, I did want to, welcome a fantastic DAP, the Defense Acquisition Procedure, and applaud this great team, of our esteemed government and MOD officials and their knowledge partners, Colonel Kuber, that have worked assiduously to produce a very well-formulated document that looks at making India more competitive globally. It looks at making India, to create jobs, to create prosperity, in national interest, if you enlarge the definition and the vision of this DAP and increase exportability, So simplifying the vision, these are clearly the objectives of the DAP, and so therefore great intent, and it's a well-formulated document. Now, we as industry partners need to work together to achieve the objectives, I would say 2 objectives really. The first one is to ensure that we procure and produce military products for our armed forces in a manner that our forces are always mission ready, in terms of their performance, in terms of their quality standards, in terms of their safety. The prime user of these military products is the armed forces. So whether it is the Air Force, the Indian Navy, or the Army, it is our job to keep them mission ready. So that is the first objective, I think, that should be understood out of this DAP. The number 2 objective, which is paramount, is, we achieve an Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliance, by building an industrial base here, which is globally competitive, that brings us prosperity in national interest, that helps to contribute to our economy in a very, very strong way. Defense industries all over the world, are a major chunk of economic prosperity, or contribute to the economic prosperity of the countries that, they are part of. Then, when I say we have to work together as partners, competitive capabilities are built when we as leaders can help accelerate our learning curve here in India. There are countries that already have very advanced industrial, technological bases already built. And mind you, these countries are also continuously innovating and improving. For instance, Pratt & Whitney has 43 years of fighter engine experience. And it has developed the highest technologies after immense, capital investment in these technologies, let's say over, decades. So when you were talking of the GTF, Colonel Kuber, I just wanted to tell you that the investment that engine took, was $20 billion, and 10 years of, arduous R&D, of development, of testing, trying, failing, learning again, etc. So that learning process was huge, and it took 10 years. Even then, we had teething problems, and now we are over those teething problems. But, let's say it's been 12 years since we have a great successful engine that sort of saves our customers 20% fuel, and that is what is their economic advantage. And therefore, that's the kind of stuff we should be looking at when we are working on our defense industry here. In terms of technology, Pratt & Whitney has the only offering on the 5th generation aircrafts in the US, So those technologies, definitely, some of those technologies can be brought to India, and some of them may not be able to come to India, but we would definitely work towards those that can currently, come to India. We are competing, on the F-15EX fighter program, and we are offering our engine on that. And definitely, we could bring a lot of synergy here, whether it's in terms of sustainment programs like Salil mentioned, MRO capability, which is part of the DAP, even commercial MRO capability is part of the DAP. So I think these are the areas where we would be focusing on to sort of answer your questions. And, I wish everyone all the best. And we join hands. We've never seen such good engagement from the industry and the government. Let's make our task, I would say our task ahead really is to make ourselves faster, more agile, and promote policies and initiatives that can bring some speed to our intent. You know, speed is of paramount importance. I would say we don't have to, I mean, we have to play catch up to these industries, but then we want to overtake these industries which are overseas. You know, so it's not enough just to play catch up. We have to overtake those industries which are already ahead of us. And we've seen, you know, in India that we've always succeeded in leaps and bounds and been successful ultimately. So I'm very positive about this policy. And yes, maybe at some stage I would be jumping with joy, as you said. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashmita. I think you're already jumping with joy. I was very impressed with what you talked about. I think at some point in time, we need to talk about the Great Turbofan project itself. Because as I recall, and as I studied a few years ago, it was a project which was developed by risk-sharing partners. And this risk-sharing partners came together and then they developed this particular engine, which is where it is today. Should we talk about risk-sharing partners in the Indian context? And should it be a part of a scheme that the government of India should promote? I think we need to talk about that. And here is the person. If you ask me to introduce him 1,000 times, I will do it so gladly. And that I'm talking to you, ladies and gentlemen, about Sanjay Jaju. Sanjay Jaju is the Joint Secretary DIP, the Defense in the Department of Defense Production. But what people know him for is his accessibility, is his friendly chat, is his firm resolve, is his ability to make policies, is his ability to convince you on a particular policy, its interpretation, is his ability to create new policies, enabling policies, make it easy for ease of doing business, create the DPIPP and enable exports, creating databases. And he's actually the man who's trying to bring in all the investments in the Make in India resolve. He's the man the industry looks up to, and the industry is so happy to interact with. He did the Defense Innovation Organization. He's a postgraduate in mechanical engineer and cost management accountant, and he's done his MBA in finance. His passion for information technology is unparalleled. He is the founding director of the National Highways Infrastructure Development Council, and also done a corporation, and also done some work in the border areas. He transformed this company with initiatives like Inampro, Infraconi, PACE, and BIMS. That is the passion that he had with IT. And he's also been awarded with the National E-Governance Gold Award by the Government of India in 2018. And he's been the secretary to the government of Andhra Pradesh in the flagship initiative of delivering a host of G2C services in 2011, the Greater Andhra Pradesh, I think. And what I really liked was in Visakhapatnam, what he did was Saukaryam, which is, again, Saukaryam in Telugu actually translates into ease of doing business, and how he brought the improved delivery of civic services to the city. And today, Visakhapatnam is booming the way it should boom. He is an avid reader. He's written a few articles in international journals, in Indian journals. He's a part of the inaugural class of the India Leadership Initiative, Aspen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hand over to Sanjay Jaju.
Thank you, Colonel Kube. You've always been very liberal with your praise. I don't know how much of that I deserve, but thanks for being so descriptive. I'd like to call upon Raksha Rajya Mantri, Honorable Shri Shripad Yasso Naik ji, Ministry of Defense, Government of India. Dr. Kansal is the co-chairman of ASSOCHAM, National Council on Aerospace and Defense. Shri Salil Gupte, Shri Neeraj Gupta, Ms. Asmita Sethi, Shri Shardi Chandra Babu, friends from the industry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be talking to you today about how we can position India as a global manufacturing hub when it comes to defense. I'm very happy that journey that we started about 20 years back with the private sector joining hands with the public sector and starting to play a role in defense manufacturing has come to a stage where now we have close to 500 licenses given out to the private sector companies for manufacturing defense and aerospace items. And I'm not including a huge list of parts and components because they don't require a license. And I can safely tell you that there are close to about 10,000 companies in our country right now, which are engaged with some of our system integrators, some of our OEMs, both in public as well as private sector, and are contributing to our heft in the defense and the aerospace segment. But it's important that we recognize the importance of defense in the overall manufacturing landscape. But at the same time, we also recognize that defense is one segment where we can't afford to be non-self-reliant. Because there is something that will not get delivered to us at any cost. Possibly in the commercial space, you can buy anything at a price, but when it comes to defense, when it comes to our own strategic requirements, there could come a time, and there had been times when certain things will not just get delivered to us at whatever the cost may be. And that's why it becomes important that we become self-reliant. And when we say we want to become self-reliant, I keep reiterating that a lot of people keep asking us as part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat package, are you advocating protectionism? Our answer is no. We are not advocating protectionism. On the contrary, we are actually emphasizing upon the need for more openness, creating opportunities for foreign players to come and work in India, manufacture, set up lines in India. At the same time, I love that the companies in our country develop the capabilities to design and develop military systems and also become part of the global supply chains. And what's more important here is the ability and capabilities to design systems, to create intellectual property. And I think that is what we want the Indian industry to become when we talk in terms of the Atmanirbhar Bharat package. I know defense is a monopoly. You have a huge dependence on the militaries of the world, and especially the military of your host country, to buy your products. And I think that's where we have started to talk in terms of exports. The defense production and the export promotion policy, the draft of which was laid in public domain recently. And the essential difference was that this time we have added this word called export promotion. So we don't look at production and export as two separate activities because they are intrinsically linked with each other. If our companies are able to tap the global market, they will not just become competitive, they will also not just produce quality products, but they will offer value for money, not just for the domestic consumers, but at the same time for the international requirements and the international consumers. That's why exports become a very important plank in our policy. And in fact, that's exactly the reason why we have brought in export as one of the major imperatives when it comes to creating a global manufacturing hub in our country. In the 3 rounds of DEF, I think 2 rounds of DEF Expo and 1 round of Aero India, you might have noticed a fundamental shift that we have tried to create. While earlier these shows used to be places where foreign vendors used to come and demonstrate their prowess, we had tried to position these important events, as the DEF Expo in the Aero India, as a place where we are able to showcase our manufacturing capabilities. And that is how we have seen this huge turnaround coming in the minds and the eyes of the entire world, that we have the capabilities and we have the capacity to manufacture world-class products and items. In the defense acquisition procedure, you might have noticed that there are a lot of significant changes which have been brought in. But one most important aspect that we are still preserved is to have Indian vendor definition and remain intact in all the Buy Indian IDDM category and all the make projects that we do. So when we say that, our articulation is very clear that we want the design to remain indigenous. We're not advocating licensed production. Whenever that is required, we'll continue to do it. That's why we have the categories of Make 3, we have the categories of Buy Global and Manufacture in India. But when it comes to designing, when it comes to having intellectual property, we would like to retain strategic control in the hands of our Indian industry. And that's where the Indian industry and the partners present today will all play a huge role in creating this paradigm shift that we're talking about. Besides this, there are a lot of initiatives that we have taken. You're aware of them. We have the Innovations for Defense Excellence, where Indian startups and MSMEs have started to play a huge role. Now we have about 600 startups which have got into the defense manufacturing ecosystem. They are working on futuristic military products, working hand in hand with the defense establishment and trying to solve their problems, create solutions. And I'm absolutely confident that once these solutions get developed, they would not just be used by the forces here. At the same time, they would also be available for exports to friendly foreign countries and are important economic revenues for our nation. We have also made a lot of changes in the trial and testing procedure in the defense acquisition procedure to make them simpler, to make them transparent. We have also taken upon ourselves a mandate that will create an online platform so that the trial and testing procedure is known to the industry, the entire procedure is known to the industry, and we could remove the bottlenecks and the red tape which is present in the current formulation. We have also looked at the process of SQR formulation in the defense acquisition procedure, and that's where we have tried to create a categorization of the essential parameter A and what we call it as the enhanced parameters, so that the Indian domestic industry is not put to a disadvantage by setting unrealistic SQRs. And I think that's another change that I would like the industry to embrace and make use of. So friends, I know there are competing demands, COVID pandemic around, fiscal stress is there everywhere, India included. Demands will definitely get moved to other segments, other priority areas. So these are the times when the industry would have to start looking at themselves, start introspecting. These are the times when the industry would have to start investing in some R&D efforts and try and leverage these times to scale their efforts, upscale their skills, and create a niche for themselves so that when the time becomes rife, you're ready to jump in, to use the opportunities and become major players in the global manufacturing ecosystem. So I'm sure we're all committed to this cause of making India a global manufacturing hub. And on behalf of the Department of Defense Production, I would like to assure all of you that we will leave no stone unturned in pushing this dream forward. Once again, I'd like to thank ASSOCHAM for organizing this webinar, and like to also thank all the industry participants who have made this event a successful event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sanjay Jaju. Humility comes from knowledge. And your friendliness and your interaction with the industry and the friendly policies that you've done, I think, is a great job. And we are talking about the friends of industry here. So if you put 37 rupees in the year 2006, do you get more than 500 rupees in the year 2020? I think that is a very commercial equation. And with the COVID pandemic on, maybe you would have reduced 37 rupees to even something like 50 or 60 today. But when I was the director of the capital acquisition programs in the MOD and the founder director of offsets, we had only 37 companies which had industrial license in the year 2006. And that was one problem that we were struggling with. And today, when Mr. Jaju talks about more than 500 companies having license and 10,000 companies over there, I would really see that 37 is multiplied into 10,000. And I think that's a very significant achievement for the MOD in these 14, 15 years. And I really liked his talk about denial of technologies, denial of systems at the time. And he also talked about protectionism versus competitiveness. And I think export promotion is what he talked about is also something that we need to embrace. Well, there is one thing in the DAP which says that the decisions of the SMB and the higher committees will be made public to the Indian industry through the Department of Defense Production portal. Well, Mr. Jaju, I think we are looking forward to that. Ladies and gentlemen, if the Indian defense industry loved a defense minister in the recent times, I'm taken back to Mr. Manohar Parrikar. And Mr. Manohar Parrikar, the way he came into the Indian defense industry as a minister, the way he interacted, the informal manner in which he talked to people, the technology oriented talks that he had. I remember there was a company which talked about IFF, and he said, are you in the 4th generation or 4+ generation, and what type of IFF and which spectrum? So that the MD got perplexed. That's the defense minister we had, a very friendly and a very wonderful defense minister who actually, when Mr. Jaju talked about essential parameters A, B, and EPP, it was the introduction from Mr. Parrikar. And I thought I should take it back to him, because DPP 2016 in many ways was a watershed DPP and was one of the most progressive DPPs we have ever had since 2000. And since I'm a witness, convinced that DPP 2016 excels in many ways than one. And yes, DAP 20 is, I would say, an improvement over DPP 16, but not as much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, talking about friends of industry, there is another friend from the same state and a very humble man who builds research, and who believes in Ayurveda, yoga, naturopathy, Siddha, homeopathy, and a man who's been a minister in Sabha till 2019, 2004, 2009, 2014, 2019. And as the 17th Lok Sabha who won the parliamentary constituency with more than 105,000 votes in a small state like Goa, I have very, very great pleasure. I've interacted with the minister. He is absolutely open with you. He speaks from his heart, and he actually talked about strategic autonomy to be declared. And he says India should declare strategic autonomy, strategic independence in the strategic sectors. Well, ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I have great pleasure in welcoming our Honorable Raksha Rajya Mantri, Shri Shripad Yeso Naik ji, for the address that we are all looking forward to. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar. Sri Salil Gupte ji, Chairman ASSOCHAM, National Council on Aerospace and Defence and President, Boeing India. Sri Sanjay Jalu ji, IAS Joint Secretary, DAP, Ministry of Defence. Ashmita Shetty ji, Sri Neeraj Gupta ji, Dr. S.A. Kansal ji, Co-Chairman ASSOCHAM, Deepak Sood ji, Secretary General ASSOCHAM, Sri Shardi Chandra Babu ji, Colonel K.V. Kuber ji, dignitaries who participated in this webinar, dear brothers and sisters. First of all, I would like to thank the association and its member for inviting me for today's discussion on the DAP 2020, which was recently released by our Honorable Raksha Mantri, Sri Rajnath Singh ji. The Government of India has been tirelessly working towards the ensuring seamless flow in acquisition and maintenance of defense platform. The first defense procurement procedure was promulgated in the year 2002 and has since been revised periodically to provide the impetus to the growing domestic industry and achieve enhanced self-reliance in defense manufacturing. On 20th September 2020, Honorable Raksha Mantri Sri Rajnath Singh ji unveiled the Defence Acquisition Procedure 2020 in New Delhi. DAP 2020 has been aligned with the vision of the government of Atmanirbhar Bharat and empowering the Indian domestic industry through Make in India initiative with the ultimate aim of turning India into a global manufacturing hub. With the new foreign direct investment policy announced, DAP 2020 has adequately included the provision to encourage the FDI to establish a manufacturing hub both for imports, substitution and export while protecting the interest of Indian domestic industry. DAP 2020 focus on simplifying the defense acquisition procedure and institutionalizing monitoring mechanism with concurrent action using digital technology and database for selection of best equipment in the transparent and competitive manner, giving adequate opportunities to capable vendors. Make in India initiative of the Government of India focuses on increasing participation of Indian vendors, including the MSMEs, and therefore make procedure has been further refined in DAP 2020 to make it more objective and time-bound with the focus on Indian industry, especially MSMEs. Defense acquisition procedure is based on the concept of warm to tomb and has certain unique aspects such as supplier constraint, technological complexity, foreign suppliers, high cost, foreign exchange implication and geopolitical ramification, and therefore is not a standard open market commercial form of procurement. While maintaining the highest standard of transparency, probity, and public accountability, a balance between competing requirements such as expeditious procurement, high quality standard, and appropriate costs need to be established. As a result, decision making pertaining to defense acquisition remains distinctive and complex. DAP 2020 has been aligned with the vision of the government of Atmanirbhar Bharat and empowering the Indian domestic industry through Make in India initiative with the ultimate aim of turning the India into a global manufacturing hub. Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan clarion call given by the Honorable Prime Minister, further accentuated by the policy reforms in the defense sector as a part of phase 4, new origin of growth, are focused toward enhancing the self-reliance in the defense production, indigenization of the spare, overhauling of the trial and testing procedure based on the realistic service qualitative requirement and requisite monitoring by the project management unit for time-bound procurement. There is a need to institute enabling the provision for utilizing and consolidation of the design, development and manufacturing infrastructure available in the country. A need has also been felt for identifying the strategic partner for promotion defense production in the private sector. The visionary FDI policy statement of the enhancing the FDI through automatic route from 49% to 74% in defense will enable in making the manufacture in India a lucrative option for foreign equipment manufacture. DAP 2020 focus on simplifying the defense acquisition procedure and institutionalizing the monitoring the mechanism with concurrent action using digital technologies and database for selection of the best equipment in a transparent and competitive manner, giving adequate opportunity to capable vendors. Make in India initiative of the Government of India focus on increasing the participation of the Indian vendors, including the MSMEs, and therefore make procedure has been further refined in DAP 2020 to make it more objective and time-bound with focus on Indian industry, especially MSMEs. Cutting down the permissible time frame for the various activities and institutionalizing robust mechanism to monitor for probity at various stage of the acquisition process are the attributes of this DAP. While the defense acquisition involve long gesture period, whereas the needs of the armed forces being non-negotiable, flexibility in the procedure has been provisioned for to ensure the timely availability of the important equipment. Thus, the DAP favors swift decision making, provides for suitable timeline and delegates power to the appropriate authority to ensure an efficient and effective implementation of the acquisition process by all stakeholders concerned. I would like to thank once again the ASSOCHAM for organizing this timely discussion on the DAP 2020, and I look forward to many more healthy and meaningful interaction in future. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir. Jai Hind, Raksha Rajya Mantri ji. Thank you so much, sir. As a friend of industry, you've always stood by the industry, and I really appreciate your being here. Today's discussion. Into the way in the Atmanirbhar way, and also to make India as a global manufacturing hub. So we need to relook at some of these things, and also we need to relook at the concept of L1 versus an effective cost or the cost to country. So the cost to country is more important just L1. The third thing, sir, I thought we should bring up is, this discussion had come up on the Make 2. The government, or, some people in the government may tend to believe that to Make 2, after all, it's not the government. There are two types of country. One is the political leadership, which is the ultimate apex leadership, and then the military leaders. Together, the leaders should get together to tell the country that after all, it is the consolidated fund of India. When 10 companies invest in a Make 2 program, well, 10 companies are investing in it. And we have to make sure that, there was a time when Mr. Parikar actually stood by this Make 2 program. He started this, and he also said that he will refund the development cost of the successful vendors. And today, that has been removed in 2018 through a small amendment, which people didn't even notice in 2016, in the DPP 2016. So I think, sir, we should take care of the money that is being invested by the industry. I think I really appreciate what you talked about design and development, the investment in R&D, like Dr. Subbarao Pavluri from Anand Technologies and Dr. Kansal and others have brought out today, that we need to incentivize the industry when they invest. The global nations, when I see Japan, Korea, they are investing more than about 4.3, 4.4% of GDP. And when I see the government in investing, it is smaller than the industry investing. So in Korea, for example, the industry invests about 50%, the government invests only about 10 to 11%. And here it is almost the other way around, because the only investment we have in R&D is through DRDO. And well, that's also the Consolidated Fund of India. And the second thing is a predictive DAP or a predictive DPP. That is, we cannot have RFPs being withdrawn at the last moment. When thing is ready, we hear about some programs, the 80 missile program, the carbines for the infantry. So I think we have to look at what, like you said so rightly, what the armed forces need, and that is non-negotiable. I think we need to also have this the policy a little more predictable, a little more industry friendly, and especially where it concerns Indian industry, there should be no question of retracting of RFPs, like it happened in the case of 7 ammunition RFPs, which were retracted after 3.5 years. And if I were to make a notional loss to the industry, it would have been more than 500 crores. That much of bank guarantees were held by the MOD for more than 3.5 years. So I think this is something we need to address. I thought I'd leave some of these points to you. And finally, what matters, Commodore Sujit Samadar says, finally, what matters are orders and contracts to the private sector. And when does that start? Because when it comes to the strategic partnership model, every time the NUH goes here and there is an HAL which comes in, and then, it gets stalled all the time. So this is one of the things that people are talking about. And I thought I should also say that, while the policy is wonderful, it's the implementation that will be the key to the policy. And there is a very nice suggestion from Prakash Kadam, who says, that we need to have a portal where industries can interact with MOD and they would understand at the ground level. Well, I think Mr. Sanjay Jaju does a great job over there. Mr. Kadam, I think you should interact with Mr. Sanjay Jaju. He'll be very happy to take on whatever you need. And also, I recall General Saini talking to us in a more friendly manner. And General Saini told us about the entire DAP and how it evolved. And he's been a part of so many other committees. So I can assure you that the armed forces and the industry and the government understands what you're saying. And so finally, on the MSMEs, we many people tend to feel, because this is a thing which comes from Balpreet Singh, and he says that many people tend to feel that MSMEs incentives and all that, at the end of the day, whether it is DRDO or it is DPSUs or it is the government, some army procurements, they insist on the EMD. And that exemption for the MSMEs is not actually being honored in some of these procurements. I really do not have the statistics. We'll pull up some of them for you. And if we get to that, I think we need to address that too. Raksha Rajya Mantriji, thank you so much for being with us. And all that is left for me to invite. I mean, I always feel that, you need to have a flight lieutenant who actually steers the aircraft and takes it to the high skies. But here I have a former flight lieutenant who's going to actually give us the concluding remarks, give us a vote of thanks, and also tell us as to how good the conference has been, and thank the Honorable Minister for sparing all his time to be here with us. It was, I think, in the year 2005 when we both were talking on the streets of Bangalore, maybe over an ice cream or a drink, I'm not too sure. And he asked me, when, sir, because at that time, while I was in the MOD as the director of the capital acquisition programs and offsets, he said, can we take our country to the next levels of defense production? And I said, yes. He said, how? I said, we both have to do it. He said, each one of us, all that I told him was each one of us has a role to play. And I must tell you from there, when Axis Cadis was zero at that time, today, it is more than 1,000 crore company. Sharadi Chandra Babu, as the chief executive officer and executive director of Axis Cadis, a former flight lieutenant of the Indian Air Force with a degree in electronics and communications, an aeronautical professional, an entrepreneur with 3 decades of industry experience. He's worked with MNCs, he's worked with the Air Force, 7 overseas assignments, founded companies, pioneered product development, service businesses, a great friend, and a great nationalist. And he always has been thinking as to how we have to take our country forward. And he's actually done a good job at Axis Cadis. He's involved in building and delivering innovative cutting-edge technology in the areas of networking and communications. And as the CEO, a multi-specialist engineering technology company headquartered in Bangalore, he's been instrumental in organic and inorganic growth of this company. And I've actually been a part of his journey in the last about 15 years. Over to you, Sharadi, for your vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Colonel Kuber, sir. It's been a wonderful introduction for a short service that I have done. Thank you so much. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are now entering into the last phase of our webinar. First of all, I would like to express my deepest and sincere, heartfelt thanks on behalf of ASSOCHAM for arranging this seminar. And also very, very deep and heartfelt thanks to Shri Shripad Yaso Nayak ji, Honorable Raksha Rajya Mantri ji, for participating in this session and for hearing all of us. I think for the last many, many hours, he's been sitting and then very patiently and very carefully listening to all of us and guiding us in this journey of implementing DAP 2020 and taking it forward. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your guidance, mentoring, and your words have been really, really very encouraging. And take it from us that we will be the ambassadors to make sure that this is appropriately implemented. Thank you so much for your time. And also, I would like to congratulate Sri Sanjay Jajuji for his excellent interpretation and also making us understand exactly what is the soul of this DAP 2020. And really, it's been very, very interesting to hear from you, sir. I think each of us need to know and then really understand from you, and that will certainly make our life easy to see how best this policy can be made into a reality, and also how this can make India really a self-reliant and also fight on its own. Thank you so much for all the inputs, and I'm sure you will continue to mentor us and guide us in the coming days and years. Next, I would like to thank, on behalf of ASSOCHAM, General Saini ji, who has really given us very, very detailed information about every aspect of DAP 2020, from make 1 to make 2, and also why each section, what is the importance, and that's really wonderful of you, sir. Thank you so much for all the information and details. I'm sure you had a lot more to share, and we will certainly find more sessions to take the information out from you and disperse to the industry. And subsequently, I would like to express very, very deep and heartfelt thanks from on behalf of ASSOCHAM to Dr. Mayank Dwivedi. It's been a wonderful listening from you, sir. And yes, certainly the TOT plays a very, very important role. And the DRDO has a very large and very strategic role in making the entire defense industry, the private sector, the large organizations, and also the MSMEs succeed in this journey. Your DRDO and sharing of technology is very, very important. Thank you so much for the information, and I'm sure we have more and more avenues to approach DRDO for small to large to very strategic, technology and its transfer. And going forward, I would like to thank all the industry participants, very, very industry veterans, Commander Mukesh Bhargav, Ashok Wadhwanji, Mr. William Blair, and Subbarao Padlurji, and Deepak Sood sir, and Kansal sir, and Salil Gupte, Neeraj Gupta, and also Ashmita Sethi, and all the other participants. And most important, Colonel Kuber sir, it's been wonderful listening to you, and your managing the session, and also your handling of the various points. Really, you have really done a wonderful job in bridging the interests of the government, the industry, and the public sector, and also all the industries. Thank you so much. From my side, I have been, as Colonel Kuber said, I have been part of this wonderful journey, starting from 2001, where we heard, where we took Kelkar Committee's recommendations and made it as a policy. And subsequently, for entire 1 decade, the DPP went through many, many modifications. It's been a long journey for all of us, including the government, the defense forces, the DRDO, the DPSUs, the OFBs, the large organizations, MSMEs, and also the global OEMs. And I remember many, many times working with Kuber sir and also many industry veterans, foreign OEMs, understanding them and their comments, their feedback, and bringing them to the government, and then see what policy change can be done, starting from DPP 2006 to 2008, then 10, 12, and now with the DAP 2020. I'm very, the government has more data than all of us, and they have taken certain decisions in the interest of the country and its industry, and also the self-reliance. And this is a time we all have to trust this and then put the best of our how this can be turned into a reality. And I have personally interacted with almost majority of the global OEMs, and we have taken almost 10 years to bring them and convince them to give orders to the Indian MSMEs, Indian companies. And now it is one more journey for all of us to convince them to come and then co-design, co-produce, and co-develop here in India and make this a big success. Thank you, wonderful participation, and look forward to the next steps and then making this DAP a reality. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharadi Babu. Thank you very much. I now request the Secretary General ASSOCHAM to honor our Raksha Rajya Mantri ji by extending a special vote of thanks to our Honorable Minister. Secretary General ASSOCHAM, Mr. Deepak Sood. Sir, on behalf of ASSOCHAM, let me thank you, sir. Once again, a standing ovation from our side, and thank you very much for being with us and listening to us all this while. Thank you, sir. Raksha Rajya Mantri ji. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Signing off now.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
you, Sharad Babu. Thank you.
Thanks, Kuber. Thank you very much. Very well conducted.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Mukesh.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you, Mukesh, sir. Thank you, Subbar.
Bye, Sharaji.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, Subbarao Garu.
Subbarao Garu, namaskaram. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Mukesh ji.
Thank you.